We begin with Joe Stanka. Joe Stanka had an odyssey as a professional baseball pitcher that took him from Duncan, Oklahoma in 1950 to Kawasaki, Japan in 1996. But for our purposes, he existed only for about 28 days in 1959, one of just a handful of late-season call-ups from the minor leagues that year by the Chicago White Sox. But there's actually a famous story about Joe Stanka and Richard Nixon. Early in September, as they marched toward the 1959 American League pennant, the White Sox, and pitched in 2 games in his life, big leaguer Joe Stanka played a couple of games in Washington. And Richard Nixon, then the Vice President of the United States, decided to go out to Griffith Stadium and congratulate them in advance on what would be Chicago's first trip to a World Series. You're seeing the World Series here since 1919. Ultimately, its last until 2005. The White Sox, in their best street clothes, stood at attention. This was 1959, after all. And Vice President Nixon went down the line, greeting each and every one of them by name, while they were not wearing caps or identification of any kind. The future Hall of Famers, Louis Aparicio, Nellie Fox, Early Wynn, they were easy. Other veterans, Ted Kluszewski, Billy Pierce, Bubba Phillips, they were recognizable to any good fan. But Nixon did not stop at Bubba Phillips. He went through all of them. Jim McEnany, Barry Latman, Ray Moore, and the coaches recognized every one of them by face alone. And finally, he got to a guy at the end who he didn't know. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Vice President," the man said. Nixon supposedly cut him off. "You must be Joe Stanka." This shocked even Joe Stanka. "I'm surprised you recognize me, sir." Nixon is supposed to have said something like, "I didn't. You're the only one I didn't recognize. So I knew you had to be this pitcher. They just brought up Joe Stanka." Nixon paused for a moment. "How was the weather in Sacramento this summer, Joe? I grew up watching the Coast League, you know." The story is told because Major League Baseball has begun its awards week, handing out its Rookies of the Year and Cy Youngs and MVPs and top managers. And for all you probably know about the finalists for some of these awards, if I told you Joe Stanka was going to get one of them, you'd probably shrug and say, "Sure, whatever." This is the state of baseball's inability to get people to be interested in any team but their own. The odds were really good that before awards week, if you were a good baseball fan, you might have recognized the name Jacob deGrom, or the name Matt Shoemaker, or the name Corey Kluber. But you probably didn't recognize all 3 unless you play in an AL-only or NL-only fantasy league. deGrom won the National League Rookie Award. You now know that he pitches for the Mets. Shoemaker is a starter for the Angels. You may have seen him during their playoff cameo. And he finished second in the AL Rookie Honors. Kluber, the most likely to be recognized, starter for Cleveland, right? Could be the Cy Young winner, probably should be. His fielding independent pitching number was 2.35 this year. I know somebody who did a double take when he saw Kluber's name on the list of finalists for that trophy. The somebody was me. Didn't see them a lot on the tube this year. Baseball fans used to know everybody, and the ones you didn't know, like Richard Nixon with Joe Stanka, you knew because you didn't know them. Not anymore. Baseball does nothing to promote the sense that you should be watching whether or not that's your team playing. You don't believe me? The NFL was not getting enough of an audience for its Thursday night games shown on its own NFL network. You know, only 8 million viewers a week. So they put the first half of the schedule back into the mainstream, simulcasting them on CBS. Baseball? Instead of making the award ceremonies into some kind of pageant and encouraging live coverage by every media outlet that was willing to send a guy with an Instagram account, it pulled the announcements out of general circulation and put them on MLB Network, which, if you have never seen it, is where they debate both sides of every important question, like Madison Bumgarner, greatest pitcher ever or greatest person ever? I swear this is true. When I was a kid going to Yankee games, my friend George and I used to have a competition. I mean, a years-long competition. Every time a relief pitcher would be brought into a game anywhere in the majors, it would be shown on the big scoreboard at Shea Stadium. Suddenly, the 30 next to Detroit would turn into a 37, and we used to try to guess who 37 was. 1 point if you were right, lose a point if you were wrong. People in the seats nearby would soon join in. 37 for Detroit. Is that Ray Bear, Tom Walker? It's not Larry LeGros. He's number 30. He just came out. Then the light bulb would go off over everybody's head. If we didn't recognize the guy's number, he must be new. Who did they just bring up from Toledo? What's the new relief pitcher's name? Makowski. Tom Makowski. Then you'd open up your scoreboard to where it listed out-of-town pitchers by number, where it had listed out-of-town pitchers by number since the earliest years of the 20th century, and there would be Detroit. 15 Coleman, 18 Hiller, 19 Lemanchik, 21 Bear, 29 Lolich, 30 LeGros, 31 Rule, 32 Walker, 37 Makowski. 1.2 Olbermann. By the way, in his first two games for the 1959 White Sox, enough of a career to get him recognized by the Vice President of the United States, Joe Stanka wore uniform number 36. So when on September 2nd, 1959, he came in relief of number 18, Barry Latman, and scoreboards around baseball switched the number next to Chicago from 18 to 36, who knows how many fans said, 36? Is that the new guy they just brought up from Sacramento? Stink Bomb? Jack Stink Bomb? Quick, what number does Matt Shoemaker wear?